The ready, set, hike. 25 states boosting their minimum wages in the new year, including California, where Pizza Hut is laying off more than 1,200 delivery drivers at its shops there. Now, as hikes kick in, more companies will tell workers maybe to take a hike. We'll have to see. Let's get the read from Brandon Arnold of the National Taxpayers Union. So, Brandon, Happy New Year, first of all. And is this a natural consequence of a hike of minimum wage, a big hike in minimum wage?
Absolutely. You're going to see reduced employment in all the states, essentially, where this is taking place. You know, job numbers remain fairly strong, but they're starting to show signs of weakness. In fact, if you move out of the healthcare industry and education and hospitality and leisure, we're actually seeing a reduction in jobs right now. So this is just going to pour more gasoline on that fire as labor markets start to weaken.
But do you think other companies will follow suit then?
Absolutely. This is the tip of the iceberg. And I think what happens, particularly in small businesses who may not have these elaborate accounting firms and CPAs and so forth, they operate more on a feel basis. So as they start to see these labor costs increase, they may not lay people off immediately, but when times get tough, they're going to have to make changes. They're going to either have to raise prices, start to reduce those labor costs, or a combination of both. And that's not fair to those employees that are getting laid off, nor is it fair to the customers that are all of a sudden paying $12, $15 for a Big Mac.
Yeah, and in some cases, you know, so the layoffs, so I'm wondering if do you think the layoffs will matter to Democratic candidates who are or lawmakers who are pushing minimum wage? Because they'll just blame the companies. They'll say, hey, those companies are still making profits. They should turn some of those profits back into workers' wages.
They will. And, you know, listen, so many of these small businesses or even large businesses have been hurt really bad in these Democratic strongholds. You look at California in particular, crime has become a huge problem. Retail theft, the safety of their customers, the safety of their employees. And so we've started to see this trend where they've left these large cities where things are a little out of control, to say the least. This is, again, just pouring more fuel on that fire. We're going to see those big businesses lay off people. Pizza Hut made that announcement already that sent shockwaves to a lot of folks. And those small businesses, those are the ones I think that are really going to take it on the chin because they don't have the economies of scale. They don't have the access to capital that these bigger businesses do. That's where the problem is really going to be acute.
And the push is not ending. Senator Bernie Sanders this year was saying that he would like to see $17 an hour minimum wage across the nation. Now, Washington, D.C. already has that, but some other countries, smaller cities, Des Moines, Iowa, you know, those cities can't handle $17 an hour, right?
Yeah, I mean, minimum wage increases are almost always problematic because politicians can't get that number exactly right, where you're raising them to the level where you're helping people but not hurting the small businesses affected. But when you do that on a national basis, it's going to be an absolute disaster. Right. Like you said, those lower cost jurisdictions, those small businesses are not going to be able to afford those huge labor costs that are going to flow from such a hike. So you're going to see 10, 12, 15% reduction in the number of jobs available. All of those people would much rather be working for $8, $9, $10 an hour than to be on the unemployment line.
So is there a way to get wages up without mandating?
Yeah, I mean, there's several ways. The first thing is to have a good business climate. That means reducing crime. That means having reasonable tax rates, reasonable levels of regulation. But I think a more direct approach ought to be fixing the ERTC. Yeah. And that is a tax credit that is intended to help the working poor. It provides benefits to people that are in the labor force, that are doing their best, but might be on the lower rungs of the economic ladder. Right now, it's kind of a disaster, very high improper payment rates, money not flowing to the people that need it most. It needs to be fixed. I'd much rather see politicians devote their time to that than to putting these job-killing policies into place.
Brandon Arnold, great discussion at the beginning of the new year. Happy New Year to you, first of all.
Same to you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And the discussion will continue with minimum wage. So are the holidays more